everybody, thank you again. I really appreciate the prayers and the people that come in and see me and pray with me and encourage me, or have me encourage them, as the case may be. I really appreciate everybody's thoughts and stuff. I want to make a video and talk a little bit about, I mentioned about how God has called me to suffer this stroke. And a lot of people are concerned. I just wanted to make this video because a lot of people are concerned that they're afraid. They're afraid that God is going to call them to something big and they're not going to be ready for it. Like God's going to say, hey, give away all your stuff and go to deepest, darkest Africa, or you know, I want you to get up there and talk in front of 1 million people or something like that. Something that's terrifying to them, something they've never done, and they don't know how to trust God in that big thing. And I want to say it's okay, because typically God doesn't work that way. He loves you and he knows that you're just getting started, and he will walk with you according to baby steps. There's a back and forth thing. There's like a proving to each other, to God that you're faithful to do what he asks you to do, and then to you that God isn't going to abandon you, that he's going to be there with you, and he's never going to give you more than you can handle. And so, and he starts that training ground with just little stuff, you know, when he, you know, for instance, for me, you know, he started with, hey, you're going to wake up in the middle of the night and pray. You know, I like to sleep, so that was, you know, okay, well, I'm going to get up and pray. And then he would confirm that, hey, that, you know, that person that you prayed for needed that, and he would confirm that. And it took steps. You know, even Jesus in his own life, God didn't just wake up one day and say, hey, will you lay down your life and die for me? You know, he had his whole life getting to know God, and God proving himself faithful. And Jesus proving himself to the Father that he was the only begotten Son, and he was trustworthy too. And then as he entered his ministry, there were steps that, again, God was proving himself, doing miracles through him, and showing him that, you know, I'm with you. So that when he got to that big thing, he was still nervous. You know, he told God, if you can, Lord, I would that you would take this cup from me. If there was some other way, he was nervous. But he goes, no matter what, you know, basically he confessed his trust in the Lord. And I'm not special. I'm not like comparing myself to Jesus, but Jesus walks with other people the same way, and the Father walks with you, and the Holy Ghost walks with you, and you know, each step is better and more daring, if you will, than the last one. And it doesn't always increase in ladder. There's other things that, hey, I need you to go, you know, give a word of encouragement to this person or whatever. But my point is he's not going to call you to suffer a stroke until you're ready to trust him. Because frankly, a lot of people that get strokes plummet into depression and alcoholism and drug abuse because it's hard. It's hard to go from being an able-bodied person to being a cripple and struggling. And I know I look okay on the outside. Having a stroke is a little bit like being in a car wreck where all the damage is on the inside. And I still suffer a great deal with my vision. I feel dizzy and cloudy all the time. I have troubles writing, troubles typing. My motor skills are coming back. They're probably making the most significant headway. But the other stuff is coming along. It's getting better, but it's slowly. So, and I get forgetful, and it's a little bit sometimes like being a 5-year-old. But is a bummer of it is, it's still an adventure. And not every adventure is fun all the way through. You know, every adventure has some like, bummers, but all in all, it's an adventure. And then that's what this stroke has been like once I realized the Lord had asked me. And I realized that because he's delivered me from all sickness and disease. And it's not like my Father to deliver you and then go, oh, by the way, I'm going to throw this at you. No, he asked me to suffer this for his purpose. And I've already seen some of that, and I shared with the video on some of that. And I'll share with some other things that have happened that are life changing. That'll be life changing. But this time, I just want to talk about it's little steps. You know, as I got to know the Father and he got to know, there were bigger things. I remember one time he asked me to give away a car, and that was a huge step of obedience. But you know, he did amazing things through that. He blessed that person, incredible. And I've since given away other cars, and it always blesses them. They need that car so bad, it blesses them. And he's right there to bless me. I am never in want. And then another time he had me give away all my money, all the money that was in my bank. Give it away to this ministry. And you know what? And I want to say, the ministry that I gave it to wasn't even important. Turns out there weren't even there's questions whether they're really needed the money. But that's between them and God and not me. I was obedient to what God asked me to do. And it was shocking. My wife was really shocked because she checked and was like, what? All our money is gone. And it was a lot of money at the time. But God was faithful, and we never wanted for anything. And I just wanted to bring up another, as they got bigger and more important, he's always right there to confirm what he's doing and what he's doing, and that it is him, and that I did what he asked me to. And there was one time I want to say, because it's kind of interesting, I was at a church one time, and we were having some internal struggles with fear. God wanted one thing, and the congregation as a whole was afraid to do what God wanted to do. And God began to talk to me one Sunday about it on the way to church, and I had about a 40-minute drive, so he had a long time to talk. And I started to realize what he was asking me, and it was terrifying. I was terrified because he was going to use me as an object lesson for the people. And God has got, later to find out, God has got priors for this. A lot of people like to think, a lot of Christians like to think, oh, God wouldn't do that. That's not Jesus would never do that. You don't know what Jesus would do. Jesus will do whatever he pleases. And there was a prophet, he had lay naked for years and eat food cooked over horse manure. And even that was a leeway, because originally he had asked that person to eat food cooked over human waste. And the prophet begged him because it violated the dietary laws of the Jewish, and he was like, I've always been clean, please. So he gave him a small mercy and let him cook over cow waste instead. So a prophet, bare naked, to illustrate a point, what he had asked me to do wasn't so bad. So essentially he was asking me to get naked in front of the church. And by naked, I kept my underwear on, so I was not butt naked, but I was terrified, because if I'm not hearing God, I'm going to look like an idiot in front of the church, stark raving naked. And so the word was, the worship was over, and before we got started, after announcements, I asked if I could, the Lord had a word. It was important. And so I was part of the leadership. There's the mic. And frankly, I'm not even sure 100% about the message. I realized what the Lord was going to do, but I was terrified. I was terrified. And I started with my shoes and socks, and they're watching me. What are they doing? Taking my shoes and socks off. And then I took my shirt off, and then I took my belt off, and then my pants came off, and I was naked. And several women in the church, couldn't even look. Like, oh my God, this guy's naked. Everybody was shocked. Everybody was shocked, to say the least. And I was terrified. And so I finished, and they were quick to give me my clothes back and please get dressed. And I no sooner got to my seat, and I was terrified. I can't express how terrified I was of what I had just done. No sooner than I got to my seat, than the first person was a lady that came to me and said, the minute you took the mic, God had me praying for you. I don't know what you were going to do. I didn't know what you were going to do, but the Lord said it was important and I should intercede. And she didn't know I was going to get naked, but she just knew she was a prayer, and the Lord said, you pray for him right now. What he's going through is big. And so she started praying. And then someone else came up to me about partway through the service and said, that is so weird. I had the freakiest dream last night that you did this in front of church. And I just thought it was a freak dream. You know, people have weird dreams that don't make any sense. And until you did it, it didn't. It just thought it was a freaky dream. But the Lord showed me last night that you did this. And then afterwards, a final confirmation. I was part of the leadership, and we usually gathered around and talked about that kind of thing. And everybody sat around and was kind of dumbfounded, but everybody agreed it was from the Lord. And so it was the third confirmation. And one day I'll tell you what else the Lord did with that. I don't want to shame anybody, but he was doing other things besides just giving an object lesson about fear. And he did several things through that demonstration. But just know that the Lord isn't going to, right out of the chute, ask you to get naked in front of a congregation. You lead up to that kind of trust between you and God. He knows that I can ask this child and they'll do what I ask them to do, no matter how crazy or awkward or painful the situation. And just like having a stroke, you know, he can't trust that with everybody. Sometimes you just get hit with the stroke by the enemy, and you have to endure the sufferings of the enemy, and the Lord feels for you and he wants you. But this time, I knew that a stroke is not mine to take. I would have prayed against it. But he had something he wanted to accomplish for it, and he said, hey, I'd like you to suffer through this. And again, it wasn't him giving me a stroke any more than God giving Jesus a beating or a crucifixion. The enemy planned all that, but God was right there knowing the enemy was going to do that and used it for his glory. So I just want you to be encouraged that if you're beginning your walk, God is not going to ask more of you than you're ready to give. He will not do that. He's right there. And sometimes you're just not. He might ask you, and you, oh, I can't do it. But he'll understand, and he'll try again, and he'll work with you. He's not, I was talking with my wife, he's not an abusive father. Every time that he's ever corrected me or anybody else, it's the most gentle correction that you can imagine. He's firm, and he's serious when he needs to be, but he's never condemning, and it's never painful. I take that back. It is painful because you feel like you've let him down, but it's never. He's never shaming you or condemning you. He's just not that way, and he's never going to ask more of you than you're ready to give. So I want you to be encouraged in your relationship and your walk with the Lord. As you get to know the Lord more, know that he's going to be right there. Every time he asks you to take a leap, the minute you do, he's going to go, that was me. And he'll show you, he'll confirm with you, or you'll get to see the blessing that bit of faithfulness made possible. So I want you to be encouraged. I want you to be encouraged. That's what this whole talk was about. And I'll talk to you again. Be blessed.